You're listening to Psych with Mike. If you enjoy the show, then help us out. Go to Apple Podcasts and rate us and leave us a comment. That is so beneficial for the show, and we would really, really appreciate it. But in addition to that, you can follow us on Twitter at Psych with Mike. You can like the Facebook page at Psych with Mike. And now you can even catch us on TikTok at Psych with Mike. So please subscribe to all of those different ways to stay connected to the show. And as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Welcome into the Psych with Mike library. This is Dr. Michael Mahan. I'm here with Mr. Brett Newcomb.
How are you today?
You don't want to repeat that?
I do not.
Okay. People will always wonder.
It was in the nature of a confidential remark.
What was it?
Yeah.
But you even said, I looked at the camera to make sure that you weren't recording before I said it.
Because I've learned I can't trust you. You don't have good boundaries.
Oh, that's so true. But that would have been, I just really wish that.
That would have been despicable.
That would have been classic. Well, but if you had said to me, you must delete that, I mean, I would not defy you. I wouldn't.
Yeah, you did that once. How'd it work out for you?
Defied you?
Yeah, you didn't turn in your paper.
Oh, God, we're going back there again? Huh? That was 35 years ago.
Patterns are patterns. That's all I can tell you.
Oh, so tell the whole story, because
you were in a graduate class that I was teaching, and you neglected to do the work that was required, and the time limit for the semester expired, and then you had to go through the whole administration to get another opportunity to submit the work and have it evaluated. I did. But here you are today. Must have worked out.
It did indeed inevitably work out. Yep. But all of that is very true. I have never, I would say, matriculated. So matriculation means specifically education. So to move through an educational process to a degree. So not only just matriculated, but ever really done anything in my life the way that people said you were supposed to do it. And so I have learned to accept that about me.
Oh, good. I thought you were going to tell me you started to obsess your way through the DSM to find out why you do that. Okay.
Yeah. It just has been manifest in so many different aspects of my life that I've just learned to accept it. I mean, there's no point in...
It's part of the package.
Yeah. So, one of the things that I hear, and I'm sure you did when you were actively practicing, more than anything else, when somebody comes into the office for the first time, you ask them, okay, what brings you here? And the inevitable answer in one form or another is, I just have a lot of stress.
Yes. And the subtext to that is often I'm a helpless victim. Mm-hmm. I'm stuck in a situation I can't do anything about. Mm-hmm. And it's an untenable situation.
Well, if you do experience stress and then you feel helpless, then that is going to make you feel hopeless. So if you have stress and helplessness and hopelessness, then you're probably going to feel pretty depressed. But just for the sake of starting the conversation, the clinical definition of stress is any situation that puts any organism in a position to change.
Okay.
So is it more stressful to go to work every day to a verbally abusive boss or to learn how to water ski?
It would depend. My answer would depend on the balance of time spent in each environment. I mean, which is the stronger precursor to whatever you're feeling.
The actual answer is that according to the clinical definition of stress, it's harder to learn how to water ski because you are learning new behaviors. When you go to work every day...
I don't buy that.
Why?
Because it's an ivory tower. I mean, that's what happens with intellectuals in colleges. They read all these books, and as I've been told, that I'm a know-it-all.
Because you've never been an educator.
I've never been. No, heck no. Where was I going with that?
That people in ivory towers...
They create these idealized examples. Let's define the world, and presuming that our definition is accurate, then all these other things must be logically true. It's unrealistic to say it doesn't involve learning new behaviors. To say you need to think about whether or not you could change jobs. You could change careers. What's available in the world, given your skill sets and resources, for you to do that doesn't require you to go in every day and be abused by an abusive boss. I think that involves learning new behaviors. I mean, it has to do with definition of terms.
So the result or the resolution, yes, I think may indeed involve a certain level of stress, because you would have to learn new behaviors to be able to get a different job.
Yeah, and then you'd have to decide it's okay to jump off the cliff.
Okay, do you think that a person could embrace the reality of going to work every day, knowing that the boss was going to be verbally abusive, and be able to function healthily in that situation?
I don't know. Let's ask Mike Pence.
Oh, Lord. So you think Mike Pence is a psychologically healthy individual?
Next question.
Yeah. So, okay, but just to put a fine point on the question, do you believe that a person who is going to work every day and to an environment that they don't prefer, but if they just accept that as the reality that they are in for the moment, they don't have to believe it's their reality forever, could they be able to navigate that and get through it in a psychologically healthy way?
There's so many layers of this, Michael.
Yeah.
I think they could make the choice to keep the job and do the job while they worked on ways to change the boss's reaction to them.
Or worked on changing their environment.
Learning where else they could go.
Right.
How to maneuver the system.
Right.
I mean, if you work for a big corporation that has multiple divisions and layers of administrative garbage, there might be a place to change within the system that you could go. But if you work for a small business, so I remember working, and when I was in college, I worked at a grocery store called the Mad Butcher in Conway, Arkansas. And the manager was a high school dropout who was related to the family that owned the store. He didn't like college students. He thought we were a bunch of know-it-alls. And
so he wasn't the Mad Butcher.
no, that was just the name of the company. But he would make it known to me by the assignments that he gave me that he didn't respect me or value me at all, but was going to use me to do all the dirty work that needed to be done. I was a young man trying to pay my way through college. There was war going on. I couldn't drop out of college, or I'd go to war, which I didn't want to do. And I was married, and I had a wife sitting home saying, "I'm hungry. What do you got to eat?" So I didn't feel that I had the freedom to quit the job. And so I handled it in not healthy ways. I had coping skills of being a smart aleck and a smart ass and mouthing off. And one day I pushed the envelope too far and got fired. So unconsciously, did I cause that to happen? Did I push that? Or was that just fate? Or
So let me ask you a question first. So while that was happening, while you were working for the Mad Butcher, did you experience that as stressful?
Absolutely. Yeah. But I also felt I didn't have an option because I had other things that I was pursuing that were more important to me. And this was just what an economist would call a sunk cost. I can go in, I can spend 8 hours here, and this guy ordered me around. I mean, it's physical labor. I can do physical labor. And insults and things that are dropped can bounce off my head because I consider the source. I didn't respect him. So I could go to work and I get my paycheck.
But I wonder if the degree to which those situations are experienced as stressful is exactly proportional to the perception that the person has that they don't have any other options.
The powerlessness. Yeah. No, I think it is.
Yeah.
I think we're saying the same thing.
But I think that powerlessness is a thing that we talk ourselves into.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because, Viktor Frankl, and I'm not going to pretend that I'm Viktor Frankl, but Viktor Frankl, who lived through the Nazi occupation of Poland and went to Auschwitz and Dachau and became the father of existential psychology, said that no man can imprison another except himself. And people would say, but Victor, you were confined to a Nazi prison camp, and you didn't have any choice. He said, we always had a choice.
Right.
You always had a choice.
Right.
And so if a man like that can believe that, then I think the rest of us can also understand that there are choices. There may not be choices that we like. The choices that we have in front of us may be arduous.
Yeah.
I understand that.
It may not be an easy path, but there's a path. Right.
But there is a path,
Yeah.
right? You can sleep on stone if you have to.
Right, absolutely.
And so what I would be trying to say to people is there's always an option. So then if you were working for the Mad Butcher and you had perceived that you had a myriad of options open to you, would that have felt as stressful?
No, because I would have taken one in a heartbeat.
Right.
Yeah.
So my point is that a lot of us...
But I did what a lot of people do. I backed into a decision instead of... and I used to have this conversation with clients all the time.
Yeah.
You can make this decision. You can step up and evaluate the cost-benefit ratio. They say, what do you mean cost-benefit ratio? Every behavior that you have costs something and pays something. So you have to do emotional economics.
Yeah.
Can I afford the cost of my choice? So my choice was to stay working for the Mad Butcher, but be a jerk and get him to fire me. Now, did I consciously think that through? Was that an analysis that I did on top of my ivory tower? No. But that's how I behaved. It's what I did. And it got me fired. And then I didn't have a choice. I had to go find another job.
Exactly.
So I didn't give myself permission to do that ahead of time. I mean, same thing when I left home. I had a violent alcoholic father. And I lived there for a long time. Finally, he kicked me out. So, part of the pattern that I learned was put myself in situations where other people make decisions and then adapt or adjust to the decision. That's not the most efficient way to do it. I learned that in my own therapy.
Yeah, well, right.
You can make your own decision, evaluate, and pull the trigger if you can figure it out. But you want to make healthy, good decisions. Like, I didn't want to go and key his car or let his tires go flat or shoot him because I didn't like him and didn't respect him, because the consequences of those choices
were greater than you wanted to pay.
Yeah, exactly.
And I do the same thing with clients. I say, when you're making lemonade, is the juice worth the squeeze?
Yeah.
And so you have to ask yourself, is the result, the reward that I'm going to get from this behavior worth what I'm going to have to sacrifice for it? But when you start thinking that way, now all of a sudden a myriad of options are available to you.
Exactly.
And then now we're not talking about stress. And so I really believe that a lot of the stress that we experience, especially in a first world country, is self-imposed stress. And that if we can give ourselves permission, we can work our way through that stress by understanding that those options are there. All we have to do is weigh, is the juice worth the squeeze?
You make it sound so simple, and it is so simple, but it's not the way most people think.
No.
They are trapped.
That's why they come talk to us, so we can simplify it for them.
Yeah. So you're an untrapper, not a trapper.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
But I understand what you're saying, but they
don't see that they have options.
Yeah.
I can't leave my mother. She's sick. So I have to stay here. I have to pay her bills because she doesn't have any income. And just keep loading expectations and shoulds and have-tos onto yourself, or allowing other people to put them on you, so that you're trapped. You don't have an option. When you're trapped, then you feel the stress of that, and that stress becomes overwhelming, and even to the extent of committing suicide.
Right.
So the challenge in therapy with this kind of an issue presenting itself is to invite them to consider that they're not trapped, that they don't have to be. They could make some different choices, and then say, let's explore what that feels like. Let's sit here in this safe room, four walls, nobody else here listening, and imagine these circumstances and have these conversations and see what feelings come.
I remember when my children were adolescents, and my rule was, I am very emotionally open. I cry more than any person that I know, probably more than any person
healthily should. But what I won't do is I won't cry with you if there isn't a reason. And so when my children were really, really frustrated and they were distraught, crying, I would go in and I would say, what's wrong? And if the answer was, I don't want to talk about it, or I don't know, then I'd say, that's really unfortunate, because I will sit and cry with you for as long as required to try and work through any problem that you have, but I won't sit and cry with you when there isn't a problem.
Or when you're not trying to solve it.
Exactly.
And you're just going to cry, then okay, cry.
Right. I mean, I'm okay. I'm
I'll
okay
be in
with
the
you
next
doing
room
it.
when you're ready. Yeah, come see me. Right.
But I'm not going to feel sympathy for that until you're ready to move. And that's what I think I want to say to people is, the only way you can be trapped is if you trap yourself. There's always an option. They may not be good options. They may not be easy options. But there's always an option. And when you're ready to talk about the options, then that's what we can productively do. But I don't want to spend a lot of time talking about the fact that you're a victim and there isn't anything that you can do about it. Is that fair?
Absolutely. I mean, well, whether it's fair or not, it's real.
Yeah.
Fair. I used to.
Yeah, I know.
Fair is a concept for 3-year-olds.
Yeah.
There's no fair in life.
All right, let's go to our break, and we'll pick this up on the other side.
All right.
Hey, Brett, if you were going to tell somebody to check out something on the internet to help them with their mental health, what would you tell them?
I'd tell them, listen to Psych with Mike.
Why would you tell them that?
Because it's probably one of the most easily listenable experiences you can have that will give you information that's useful for a whole spectrum of concerns that people have.
I agree, and I have actually been told that by at least a dozen people, several of whom were not married to me, and some of them didn't even know me.
That's amazing.
That is amazing. It's when we get that kind of feedback from people, it is so incredibly humbling and overwhelming for me.
It is for both of us.
Yeah. So we really appreciate it, and as always, if it's Friday, it's Psych with Mike. Okay, we're back. So I realize that that fair is a loaded term, and not fair itself isn't really fair. But do you believe that is
I think the argument you make is an accurate argument and a therapeutic argument.
It's a therapeutically valid statement. I'm not going to work hard on helping you to perceive yourself as a victim.
Well, and I'm not going to agree with you that you are a victim.
Right.
I'm going to agree with you that bad things happened.
So
you may not have deserved for this to happen.
If people come to the office,
I believe you're response able. I mean, we talk about words. Words matter. The words you hear in your head really do matter. You hear a script. Somebody wrote a script for you and gave it to you. They implanted it in you when you were 4 or 5 years old, or 5 to 8. You can rewrite it. You can change the script. But if you don't do that, then someone will always edit the script for you. It could be your wife. It could be your girlfriend. It could be your boss. It could be the next door neighbor. Do you want to write your own script? And if so, what would that be? Let's start with a blank page. Let's don't start with any shoulds. Let's start with, what do you want? Or as my wife said to me the other day, what makes you happy? And I'm like, well, I don't know the answer to that question. Why don't you know? Didn't you advise clients the same question? What made you happy? Well, yeah, but that was for them.
I hate when my wife says that.
Yeah. Yes, we've had that conversation any number of times. But yeah, there's a question to ask, what makes you happy? How can you experience this situation differently so that you don't feel stressed or angry or hurt or betrayed or whatever those negative feelings are? And either A, stay in the same reality and just redefine it. You know, this is where I live. This is the job I have. This is the person I work for. Or imagine yourself redefining it. You know what? I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to do something else. What do you want to do? Well, I don't know. Maybe I'll be a truck driver or a cowboy. Remember when you were a kid and you used to fantasize about being a cowboy or a spaceman, or you still can.
Yeah.
You know, what do you want to do?
Right.
What makes you happy?
And so, I almost said your wife's name. So when
It's okay.
when
I know her name.
Yeah, I know her name too, but I don't know if you want everybody to know her name. So when your wife asked you what makes you happy, and you said, I don't know, And she said, well, wouldn't you instruct your clients to understand what makes them happy? Obviously, and like I said, I hate when my wife
said
does
to her,
that,
Phyllis, leave me alone.
But did it surprise you that at 70 years old you didn't know?
Yes.
And
I would have thought the answer to that would have come more readily to me. Yeah.
And do you think it's changed?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I would say that when I knew you 30 years ago, that you did know.
I think it changes. I think life evolves.
Yeah.
Life is about change.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Okay, but I want to get back to, so if somebody comes to the office.
I heard this song on the radio, said, don't worry, be happy.
Yeah.
So then I was.
I heard that song too. And I punched my radio and then broke my car and, so if somebody comes to the office and they want to wallow in their victimhood, and then I say, look, I'm not going to work on helping you perceive yourself as a victim. And they say, well, you're a jerk. And I say, well, that may be true, but I'm still not going to help you wallow in victimhood. Right. You believe that is therapeutically valid?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't.
Required.
But a lot of people would not. A lot of people would say you approach the client from where they are.
Conflict avoidant.
Yeah.
Well, you're not approaching them from where they are.
I know.
That is where they are.
I agree.
So where do you make an intervention?
And I think you and I are in agreement, and we're saying the same thing. But I have had people say to me that I am not being appreciative of the client's state.
Yeah, but you learn to say little aphorisms, the truisms. Mm-hmm. If you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten.
Yeah.
And then they get mad at you.
Yeah.
Same way I get mad at my wife because she says that crap to me. What she says to me is, what would you say to a client that said what you just said to me? And I would say, where's the divorce lawyer's number?
Yeah. And I have had many, 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 many clients say to me, the thing that I like about you is that you're going to give me an answer, you're going to tell me the way it is, and a lot of other people don't do that. And I say, you know what? I appreciate that. And for people who don't like that, I readily acknowledge not everybody is everybody else's cup of tea. I'm not everybody's cup of tea. There are plenty of people who are going to pat you on the back and tell you that
in my father's mansion.
Right, that it's going to get better. They're going to wear nice cardigan sweaters.
Go get it. Yeah, because you're not going to get it here.
Absolutely.
Right? Absolutely.
But I'm going to
I have no problem with a cardigan sweater.
I was being
facetious.
stereotypical. Yeah.
Okay,
that's the whole Stuart Smalley.
There you go.
Thing.
Yeah.
I have no problem with a nice cardigan. Yeah. But I'm not going to wallow in a person's perception of victimhood. And if that's what somebody wants, they have to do that somewhere else, because I'm not going to do that. And I'm okay with people saying what you're doing isn't what I want. I want you to find what you want.
Yeah.
But you have to know that if you're going to come work with me, that we're going to talk about, is the juice worth the squeeze, and of the palette of options you have available to you, which one of those options feels the least squeezy?
And can we, in a safe environment, imagine other alternatives and try them on, like trying on clothes at a clothing store? Can you try this on as an attitude or a thought or even a script? Can you practice saying, I hate my father, out loud, instead of screaming it in your head? Because then that moves you down the road somewhere. Where's that going to take you? Now that you can acknowledge you hate your father, what do you want to do about it? What are your options? What could you do about it? And they're like, oh my God, I can't even think that. I can't say that I'll be destroyed. So are you still breathing?
But, even when you don't get to these kinds of family of origin issues like I hate my father, which, some people are going to get to those, because those are pretty deep.
Yeah.
And some people are going to get to those, some people aren't. But just for me, the simple task of owning the responsibility for the things that are upsetting you.
Yes, you're defining your terms again.
Because
let's focus on what we're focused on.
Yeah.
Let's don't chase a red herring.
I remember when I would go through these elaborate family meetings about, somebody cook and somebody clean. And ultimately, the bottom line is, nobody in my house, other than me, ever met a dirty dish that offended them.
Yeah.
And so the kitchen being clean was no one's concern but mine, until I owned that and said, nobody is going to help me out of this problem but me. It was a problem.
Yeah, I remember a high school counselor friend of mine back when I was teaching high school in the 70s, who used to ask a question whenever one of those heated conversations would come up. And we'd be in a session with a group of students or group of teachers or parent, whoever it was. And he would say, well, let's begin by deciding who has the problem.
Did you punch him in the throat?
No, I learned from him. He's absolutely right. It's the same thing you're saying. Who's got the problem?
Yeah, but when somebody says that to you and you're the one with the problem, you want to lash out.
His name for credit there was Bob Jennings. Bob, I remember you, if you're out there listening, and you taught me something.
Well, that's amazing because Bob Jennings was one of my high school football coaches.
Different high school.
Different guy.
Yeah, different guy.
Yeah.
There must be a lot of Bobs out there.
Must be.
The Jennings family was very prolific.
But, but I understand that. I understand if you're the one who feels victimized, you don't want to hear that who's the one with the problem, because we don't want to take responsibility.
If you've identified the problem, that's the end of it. God will take care of it, or life will take care of it. It's like,
no, I've identified the problem. Yeah. You all don't appreciate me.
Yeah.
Because you won't clean the kitchen. Right. No, they don't care.
No, the problem that you've identified is there are dirty dishes in there and it bothers me.
Exactly.
And that's the end of the world. So the world should stop until that's fixed.
So someone should fix it for me.
Right, exactly.
And that's what I see as the rub in therapy, is helping people to recognize.
So a therapist should come to your house and do your dishes.
Yeah, that's what I just said. That's right. Well, ideally, we should all recognize that we are responsible for the things that are upsetting to us.
What part of this bothers you?
Right.
What do you have power over?
Right.
Just that part.
And right. So if your significant other is not appreciative of your attributes, you have a choice.
When I say to her, Phyllis, that bothers me when you say that to me, then she says, then don't behave that way. Mm-hmm. Well, no, that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted you to stop dealing with it.
Right.
Well, no, I'm not going to. Yeah. So don't behave that way if you don't want me to say this.
Right. Well, so if you go in and you say, stop drinking or we're through, don't say that unless you're ready to walk.
Oh, and we'd say that to parents all the time. Don't threaten a consequence that you aren't going to apply. Mm-hmm. Because if you don't apply it, children study you like scientists study lab rats. Mm-hmm. Where is the exact moment of movement? Because all the rest of it's just sound and storm. It doesn't go anywhere. Nothing changes. So they want to know what the cost is. Back to the squeeze. What's the price of the squeeze? Mm-hmm. I remember one time having that conversation with one of my children, and I said, if you do this, you'll get a whipping. And he looked at me and said, how hard?
How many swats?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's doing the calculation, and
that's what I realized at the time. And I said, okay, then.
Well, so this is something that I tell clients, and sometimes I have to explain it because I'm getting older. I say I'm old, and then you say, oh, you're not old.
Yeah.
But
I don't say that. You're really old.
You remember Beretta during the 70s?
Oh yeah.
So
with
Beretta,
with the cockatiel.
Yeah,
cockatiel?
He had a cockatiel. He was a private investigator. He had a cockatiel on his shoulder. But in the opening, Robert Conrad. No. Robert.
Doesn't matter. You're getting old. That's proof. Proof is in the pudding.
Yeah.
That's the Google machine.
Anyway, now it's going to bother me. And we'll remember as soon as we're
look
done.
It up when we're off.
Yeah. But the theme song, in one of the lines in the opening theme song was, "Don't do the crime if you can't do the time."
Yeah.
But if you are willing to do the time, nobody can stop you from doing anything.
Oh, exactly.
And so then what we have to think about is that our goal? Is our goal to force you to behave a certain way, or just to get you to analyze, is this worth it to me? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And if the juice is worth the squeeze, you can't stop them. Stop trying to be invested in managing the behavior, and just recognize all you're doing is giving them the opportunity to make the evaluation. That's all discipline is the opportunity for the other person to make the evaluation. Is the juice worth the squeeze? Now, if they do it and then they want to try and avoid the consequence, right, then that's a horse of a different color. But like your son said, hey, how hard?
Yeah.
I mean, if he's making the calculation.
That's what he wanted to know, so he can figure out
that's right.
his behavior choice. Absolutely. I respect
that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So did I.
So hopefully that was a profitable conversation for people. If not, then send us some information about what we could talk about that would be profitable. We're looking for interaction with the audience about things that are on your radar that you would like to have more information about. Did you want to say something about that?
Truth hurts.
Okay. I thought you had something
really, no, I didn't.
something really philosophical.
No.
As always, the music that appears in Psych with Mike is written and performed by Mr. Benjamin DeClue. You can go on the Apple Podcast and find us, Psych with Mike, and leave us a comment and rate us. Go on YouTube. I'm asking everybody who listens to Psych with Mike until the end, and you enjoy Psych with Mike, go to YouTube.
To the end of this session, or to the end of the time?
To the end
of time.
No, the end
I will go on.
The end of this session.
Oh, okay.
But I'm asking everybody who really actually listens to Psych with Mike, please go on to YouTube and subscribe to the channel, even if you don't usually get us through YouTube, because that would really be beneficial for us.
Send us $100 and Mike will send you a diagnosis.
And as always, if it's Friday, you can always send money. It's Psych with Mike.